The February 2021 Classic Tetris Monthly Masters event showed once again that, even in a simple old game, you can still see new and exciting things on a monthly basis. And one thing to note, if you haven't watched the tournament in a while, I'd recommend checking it out again. All the brackets used to be broadcast in order by Vandweller alone, resulting in an event that often went upwards of 8 hours, which is a huge time commitment for any viewer and exhausting for a broadcaster to do in one sitting. There's almost no major sports that require that from their commentators. But starting in January, the early rounds have been broadcast simultaneously to 2 Twitch channels, with Vandweller on Monthly Tetris and Kibbybyte on Monthly Tetris 2, and then they join up on Monthly Tetris for the semis and finals. Kibby is one of the most prolific restreamers in the community. He definitely deserved this promotion, and him and Vandweller have a great dynamic together, and the restructuring has brought the length down to a much more manageable 5 hours now, so it's a win all around. As always, links in the description if you want to check it out. Now, let's get on to the highlights. Due to the January 2021 CTM being postponed, there was a bit of a shorter period to qualify, and we ended up seeing a lot of new faces on the qualifying board, and a couple of big surprises in the games. For the round of 16, one noteworthy match was Dog playing Tetris versus Dog playing Tetris, which was a bit of a tongue twister for poor Kibby on the mic, and incredibly, in the first game of the match, which was a double kill screen game, Dog almost doubled Dog's score for an incredible margin of 493,000 points, which is almost certainly a record for the biggest score gap in a CTM game. Dog actually messaged me after the tournament saying, "Oh no, is this gonna be in the highlights?" And well, the thing is, here's what I have to say about his game. I don't think it's actually a bad performance because there's a reason why margins this big are so rare. Most of the time what happens is something similar to my own CTM match versus Joseph forever ago, which was on pace to have an even bigger score gap than Dog and Dog. Joseph was already nearly 400,000 points up on me shortly past the transition, but I wasn't good enough to make it to kill screen consistently and just fizzled out fast, ending the game early. Dog kept getting out of extremely tough board situations with masterful digs throughout his game, and although it killed his pace, the fact that he was able to survive till level 29 was remarkable and worthy of commendation. However, there's one matchup in the first round that really stood out in particular: Corion versus Scotto Bozo. Scotto Bozo has been a competitor in the main bracket of both of the last World Championships, but is perhaps best known for being the first to manually play a theoretically perfect game of Tetris all the way until level 29 by memorizing the entire sequence of pieces ahead of time using RNG manipulation. This technique would not be permissible or even viable during competition though, since he has to reset the console every time to get the sequence, and can only hit the exact starting frame once every 10 to 15 tries. So in tournaments he's within the limits of DAS, and in fact was the first DAS player to qualify for the CTM Masters event in several months. His reward for making it in was having to face Corion, only the number 4 ranked player in the world by ELO. So how did the games go? Well, in game 1, Scotto actually had a commanding 100,000 point lead going into the final levels, and Corion needed to play aggressive and couldn't get a J over to the left, giving Scotto a 1-game lead. Game 2, Corion was on strong max out pace on level 23, but a misdrop and a drought caused him to top out, and Scotto coasted to a shocking 2-0 lead. In game 3 though, Corion was on a torrid pace for potentially 1.2 million, having nearly 800k on level 22 and almost a 300,000 point lead, and Scotto was left in the dust, couldn't survive an aggressive stack, making it 2-1. By the middle of game 4, Corion is clinging to a small half Tetris lead, but is ahead by 13 lines, so Scotto actually has a nearly 2.5 Tetris pace lead. And Scotto is gonna start off with the Tetris to take back the score lead, but both players' boards are now perfectly clean. Corion is poised to strike back, and now he's set up, but Scotto is gonna score a Tetris at the same time as him to maintain the lead. Corion is building up, is just about Tetris ready again, but his parity is slipping away. Has an awkward tower in the center, but Scotto's board is getting bumpy too, and nails a quick tap with a long bar 7 high left, and Corion misdrops a T-piece at the worst possible time. His left isn't built out, he can't burn. Just about to top out, holds out for a long bar and just misses a long bar to the right for a desperation triple, and Scotto has won by 12,000 points. He doesn't know it yet and is doing his absolute best to squeeze across any more points he possibly can before topping out, but he's in the clear. He wins game 4 and defeats the 11-time CTM winner Corion 3-1 in an enormous upset. And in the next round, he showed it wasn't a fluke, taking Nenu all the way to a decider, coming within a single game of the semifinals, making a definitive statement that DAS isn't dead yet and can still be competitive at the highest level. But the crazy games this month were just getting started. In Game 3 versus Tristop and Sodium, they were tied at 1 game apiece and entered the kill screen with Sodium up by almost 100,000 points, but Tristop put up a fight, getting all the way to the end of level 31 and setting a new personal best for lines, putting him tied for 15th on the all-time leaderboard and one of the very few people on the list to get their record live in competition. But Sodium does get the W to go up 2-1, so Game 4, this is a must-win game for Tristop. Both are an incredible pace, well over 1 million at level 27, barely 2,000 points apart. Sodium is clinging to a slim advantage with a 3/4 Tetris pace lead, but Tristop is ready for a Tetris, waiting at the long bar, has to take a double, gets the Tetris, and now Sodium is ready, but he has to take a double too, negating the pace gain. Tristop gets a Tetris to take a 1 Tetris lead, but he's nearly at the kill screen, is still behind a Tetris in pace. Sodium building up, no holes in his stack, and he nails a Tetris. Tristop only has 1 more Tetris he can get. Sodium sets up a potential Vitz and misdrops a J, probably trying to get a double, and Tristop just barely gets his final Tetris and has a 1.06 Tetris lead. Sodium gets a double and a single, now only needs a Tetris, but his board is too high to set up, he has nowhere to do it, and he tops out. And Tristop has won by less than a Tetris. And in Game 5, he prevailed to advance. And next up, had to face one of the fastest tappers in the world, Eric ICX. Eric is up 2-0. This is another must-win game for Tristop. He's down 2 Tetrises in score, but has a tiny pace lead if he can maintain it. Tristop lays down a Tetris, and Eric is going to have to burn a double to get clean again, giving Tristop a little bit more pace margin. Eric is perfectly clean, Tetris ready, and gets a Tetris to maintain his 2 Tetris lead. Tristop's ready for another Tetris. Eric is at 229 lines. He has 1 Tetris left and can't burn. He'll need to hold out as long as he can or gamble with the kill screen Tetris. Tristop barely gets a Tetris there and almost misdrops the S-piece there in the center and hangs the J on the right. He needs a long bar now. But Eric got drafted, has to burn and just misses the Tetris, and now Tristop needs 1 more Tetris, but his board is in such bad shape and just gets a long bar over for a final Tetris and has 1 line left before the kill screen. But with this board, he can't do anything, but it doesn't matter. He wins by 29,000 points and stays alive in the tournament by the skin of his teeth. There was so much going on here in the final moments. Eric almost got the final game-winning Tetris on level 29, but he would have needed mid-20 hertz tapping to get a long bar 10 high left. Tristop's board had no other burn options available other than a double, which at 2,900 points would not have closed the 5,000 point gap, so he absolutely needed that final Tetris. Tristop went on to win games 4 and 5 to complete the comeback and earn himself a trip to the finals, where he'd have to face nothing less than the reigning world champion. Game 1, both players are just about even going into transition. Normally this would be a pretty standard situation, but Tristop is about to enter a bit of a drought. He gets a Tetris, has a nice clean board going into 19. Dog going for some slightly aggressive moves on the left of his board, but he's got the tapping speed to get them over without hanging. Tristop is playing aggressive and nails a pro Z-spin. Not sure if that overhang was intentional, but he survives and is now just having to spend a bit of time digging this out up high. His drought counter is now in the 20s, and it just keeps going. Tristop is expecting a long bar any moment now and takes a triple at the last possible moment. That double is going to seal off his well, and of course now the long bar comes, but it doesn't help, and he shoves another piece to the right and gets another square there over for the square tuck and the long bar over. He's managing to dig himself out of a rough board and survive the 39-piece drought. Playing aggressive initially was statistically probably the right move. A drought like that's only going to happen roughly 2% of the time in a sequence of that length, and Tristop misshifts a J. It looked similar to an early DAS load there and is going to be stuck digging a while longer, and Dog continuing to play clean and aggressive this whole time. Not a single mistake on his board, just Tetris after Tetris, and it looks like Tristop's gonna wave the white flag. The stack was just getting too high. He survives for an impressively long time high up, but it's not enough to avoid handing Dog a Game 1 victory. Dog went on to sweep Tristop in 3 games, earning his 2nd CTM title in style. As always, I reached out to interview both the finalists, albeit before I recently got a haircut. So for you, it's been kind of a whirlwind of the past few months. You got the CTWC victory, and then CTM, which had kind of been an enigma for you. You now have 2 CTM titles. And you haven't been playing that long either. So a year ago, like before any of this happened, when you were just starting out playing, what could you have kind of imagined at that time? What were you going for? Could you have ever thought it would get to this point?
I think my goal like by the end of 2020 for me, because I think I started playing around like August 2019. My goal in 2020 was to like max out at the end of 2020 or something, and I ended up maxing out 2019. So I was like really kind of surprised. So then I just kept going for higher scores and started playing in more tournaments and like CTL and stuff. I was able to train my consistency, and I just wanted to qualify for CWC.
You just came to qualify?
Yeah. Yeah.
In your match versus Dog, where you won by nearly 500,000 points, at what point did you know the lead was that big? Did you have any like strategy in the end when the victory was kind of guaranteed?
I mean, okay, so I knew the big score difference whenever we transitioned, and I saw that his transition score is a lot lower than mine. So my strategy was to just like not play safe, but to play aggressive, but also have a way to burn so you can never top out.
So for 2021, do you have any goals in mind? Are there any Tetris projects that you're working on that you'd want to talk about?
Really, I think my only like big Tetris projects that I'm working on is CTB, Classic Tetris Brawl. It's one of the tournaments that I host, and every 3 months there's a Brawl Championship consisting of really good players, and there's a unique format which is 3-player matches for round 1, which is actually not done by, I don't think, any other tournament. So there is a Classic Tetris Brawl link that you can find in the description of this video to join into our events.
It was really cool seeing you win another CTM, and best of luck in 2021. Thanks for coming on for the interview, Dog.
Thank you.
So did you have a favorite game or match from the tournament?
Definitely the match against Sodium. It was the match I was the least stressed about. Sodium's like one of my closest friends in Tetris, so if I lost, I would have been happy for him. And also, the game itself, we had like a double 1.1, it was crazy, and I got a Lines PB, so it was just overall a great game.
What was it like getting that? Was there something going like particularly well that run?
Particularly that day, I was tapping much faster than I normally would. Like on kill screen, I usually, I'm half and half with 3 right, but I was hitting 4 right that day pretty consistently. In the run, I hit 4 high with a square twice, which means the stack was 4 columns high up already, so that definitely helped. You're gonna hear this advice a lot nowadays from players: do not go for 5 taps, because most 5 taps are really hard to hit. You have to go really fast, so it's a lot of pieces. You have to understand how many taps it takes to put into a specific place on the board. So, and you would try to want to optimize your board to have it low, so you don't have to go for hard 4 taps, but also be able to have room for 3 taps on the right, so you can get pieces over. So yeah, you constantly have to have that in mind.
So at the end of game 4 versus Sodium, it was a really crazy finish. Did you know in your mind during that game how close it was towards the end? What was going through your mind?
I didn't know it was gonna be that close, but I knew he was on some crazy pace as well, because we both transitioned pretty high. I transitioned much higher than he did, but he still had a good transition to 1.1, and he did play much more aggressive than me in 19. Around the 25-26 range, I heard Vanweller say the scores, and I knew we had the potential, both of us, to 1.2, but I thought 1.1 was going to be safe, and he also got a 1.1, so it was really close. And Sodium even blundered at the end. There was one J he didn't flip. If he flipped that and burned a line and then scored 2 Tetrises, he would have taken the match. So even though I was ahead, I just took it barely.
Well, it was awesome to see you in the finals for the first time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in future main events. Thanks so much for doing an interview. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching the recap. The stats during the highlights this month were all generated automatically using Yobi9's Tetris CTM summary tool. It took a ton of design time and testing to get it working, and I went over the entire design process and a full explanation of the stats in my previous video. So if you missed it, I'll have a link in the end screen, and if you're a player or restreamer who wants to have these stats live in your games, he has a browser-based game hosting service called Nestus Champs. Link will also be in the description. See you guys in the next video.